Hey, welcome back to the Odds Dropper YouTube channel. I'm Isaiah, and I'm here to break down this weekend's college football slate over at No House Advantage. We've got an action-packed slate of college football this weekend. And No House Advantage is offering lines on two games. They're offering lines on the Illinois and Michigan game and the Baylor TCU game. Both games have pretty significant playoff implications. If either Michigan or TCU choke, then they're done. There's no chance that they have to get into the college football playoff. So it's a do-or-die game for both schools. Interestingly enough, though, Illinois and Baylor don't really have anything left to play for. Neither team can get into their conference championship game anymore. So that could create some issues with these picks. The first game we're going to target is Illinois at Michigan. The spread for this game is Michigan by 17.5, and the total is 41.5. So the books expect the Wolverines to roll the Illini here. It's not going to be a close game. Obviously, Michigan still has stuff left to play for. They can qualify for the Big Ten championship with a win over Ohio State. Illinois can no longer qualify for the Big Ten championship after their loss to Purdue. So one team has something to play for, the other doesn't. That's going to underpin quite a few of our picks here. The next is that both teams have really slow offenses. The Illini rank 91st in seconds per play, which not great, and Michigan ranks 124th. So you're not going to see a whole lot of fast-paced, up-tempo stuff. You're going to see a lot of really slow in the huddle, take a lot of time to get ready for the snap stuff, which is going to give us a bias for the unders here. So our first pick is going to be the under for Chase Brown. The number sits at 111.5 yards, but if you look at the sports books, that number is just 106.5. So we're already getting a little bit of value by playing this line in No House Advantage relative to the sports books. So that's the first reason why you want to play this. The next is that the Wolverines are really, really good against the run. They're first in the country in rushing yards allowed per game at 72.7, and they're first in the country at rushing yards allowed per play at 2.6. So there's not a whole lot of room for error here when it comes to Chase Brown getting over this. He's got a tough defense to fight against. Next is that Chase Brown isn't even that efficient. He's just been getting a ton of carries for the Illini, and that's why he's been getting so many yards per game. He's averaging only 4.7 yards per game against Big Ten defenses, which means that he'd need 23 carries to go over this total against Michigan. He would need 43 carries to go over this total if he ran at the rate that Michigan allows runners to run at. So unless he sees a ton of volume in this game, which he's unlikely to do because Michigan is a huge favorite, it's safe to avoid him here. Our next pick for this game, we're going to go to Michigan's quarterback, J.J. McCarthy. We're going to take him to go under 194.5 passing yards. Again, we're getting value versus the books. The line sits at 188.5 at Caesars and DraftKings. So we're getting just under 10 yards of value there. The next is that the Illini, although they aren't great as a team, they're really strong on defense and they're really good at limiting the pass. Illinois ranks number 9 in passing yards allowed per game with 173.4, and they rank 3rd in passing yards allowed per attempt at 5.4. So unless McCarthy is throwing the ball a ton, he's probably not going to go over this total. And given the fact that Michigan is a pretty big favorite at 17.5, he's unlikely to be throwing the ball all that much. Further, he's already a low volume passer. Michigan is 122nd in passing play percentage at just 37.7%. That's led McCarthy to average only 174.4 passing yards per game, which is already 20 yards under this total, and he stayed under this number in 5 of his 7 games against the Big Ten. So it's going to be very hard for McCarthy to hit the over here. We're going to play the under, and it's going to hit. Awesome. I just want to take a quick second to talk about No House Advantage. So they're a fantastic DFS site that also lets you do bets versus the house, which means you can win 2.5, 5, 11, or 21 times your money, depending on how many prop bets you're willing to parlay. It's a great alternative if you don't have legal sports books in your area, and I'm a big fan of it. So with this play, because we're going to be doing 4 lines, that means we're going to be winning 11 times our money if it hits. There's also a $50 deposit match. If you deposit your money now at No House Advantage, you can get a free $50 to play with over at that site. So you throw in your first $50 on this play, it doesn't hit, your deposit gets matched. You've got another $50 to play with next week. The next game we're going to look at is TCU at Baylor. The spread for this game sits at TCU by 2.5, even though they're the visitors. The total for this one is at 57. So the books expect a decent amount of scoring, but they also expect it to be a competitive game. A couple other quick notes. TCU has already locked up a bid to the Big 12 championship, while Baylor is virtually eliminated after their loss to Kansas State. So one team has a lot to play for, the other not so much, because TCU can still get into the college football playoff. Baylor's been out of that for a while. The next, Baylor and TCU play at relatively slow paces. TCU is at 87th in seconds per play, not great, and Baylor's at 84th. Also not great. That's a good reason to target the unders, especially for Baylor because they don't have a whole lot to play for. Our first play is going to be Richard Reese under 66.5 rushing yards. The main reason why we're targeting this is because Reese has recently seen less and less usage. He got just 13 total carries over the last 2 weeks. Keep in mind that 3 weeks ago, he had 36 carries. So Baylor is making an active change in how they're using their backfield to keep Reese off the field to make sure that he's not getting overworked and that he's staying healthy. And if they were only willing to give him 9 carries in a game against Kansas State that was crucial for their race to the Big 12, then they're probably not going to want to give him a lot of work in what's basically a meaningless game against TCU. So the chances that he gets over 66.5 rushing yards, pretty low. He probably isn't going to get the volume to get there. The next reason to target this play is that TCU is actually not bad against the run. They're 47th in rushing yards allowed per game at 139.6, and they're number 43 in rushing yards allowed per attempt at 3.9. So Reese would need a decent amount of work to even hit the total, and considering how his volume has been decreasing lately, doesn't seem like there's a great chance of that happening. Next, lastly, obviously this is probably not going to be a great game script for him. Even though Baylor's only a 2.5-point dog, they're still probably going to have to play catch up to keep up with this elite TCU offense. I mean, we've seen TCU destroy teams like Texas with a ton of points. We've seen Max Duggan throw Hail Marys to cover the spread against West Virginia and whatnot. So this is a really solid offense from TCU, and I don't think Baylor's going to be able to keep up if they don't keep the ball in the hands of quarterback Blake Shapen. So don't expect a whole lot of production out of Richard Reese. TCU leads a lot of games. They're 31st in opponent rushing play percentage. So other teams aren't running a whole lot against TCU because they're leading a lot. And they actually rank 26th in that metric over the last 3 games. So other teams are minimizing their carries to emphasize the pass. Chances are that's going to hurt Richard Reese, especially because he's only seeing very few carries per game at this rate. Awesome. My last play here is going to be Max Duggan over 251.5 passing yards. So for the first play today, we're actually getting value on the over versus the sports books because this number sits at 258.5 at both Caesars and DraftKings. So that's a full 7 points of value there. Next, Baylor is pretty bad against the pass. The Bears rank 75th in passing yards allowed per game with 235.8. Well, that's a little lower than this number. Duggan's a really efficient passer. The third reason to target this play is simply that Duggan actually averages more passing yards per game than this total. Although he's had 2 straight relatively low production games in a row against Texas Tech and Texas, one of those games he was without his top wide receiver for a decent amount of the game because he got hurt. I think he'll be able to recover now that Quentin Johnson is healthy. He'll easily go over this number. He's been over in 5 of his 7 games against Big 12 opponents, and he's averaging 253.1 yards per game. There's no reason why he can't go over this number, even if it's a little close. All right, so let's recap. We have 4 plays this week, which means we're going to win 11 times our money when these all hit. First, we're going to target Chase Brown to stay under 111.5 rushing yards. The offenses are just too slow, and Michigan's defense is too good. Next, we're going to target J.J. McCarthy to go under 194.5 passing yards. Again, you've got slow offenses, and again, Illinois' defense, pretty solid against the pass. Next, we're going to target Richard Reese to stay under 66.5 rushing yards. The books don't even have a prop posted for Reese because of how low his usage has been in recent games, so there's no reason why you can't play this under and feel pretty confident about it. Lastly, we're going to target 1 over, and it's going to be Max Duggan passing yards. We're going to play him to go over 251.5 passing yards because this number is 7 yards higher across the market. We're getting a decent amount of value here at No House Advantage, and TCU's offense has leaned on Duggan in big moments, especially in close games. Once again, this is Isaiah here at OddsShopper signing off. If you like this video, feel free to leave a like or hit the subscribe button for more advice like this every week. I break down the college football slate over at No House Advantage every week. Over at No House Advantage, you can get a $50 deposit match if you put your money down now, and that gives you a chance to get a free play essentially if your lineup loses. Again, we also have tools over at Stochastic. If you're more of a DFS player, you can try out our lineup optimizer for No House Advantage to break down the site and see what the best plays are on DFS. And if you found my advice useful in particular, feel free to check out my author page over at OddsShopper. My name is Isaiah Sirois, and you can follow me on Twitter at IS_SIROIS. Once again, thanks for giving this a watch, and please leave a like and subscribe if you found it useful.